Alright, what's up guys, it's KOSDFF here, and today I'm going to be telling you about the best field trip I have ever been on in my entire life. So of course we're going to be traveling back to Australia for this story, because if you guys are in the American public education system, you know field trips suck dick. But that wasn't the case at this school, because it was a fancy school, kind of. It's not like their buildings were super nice, but it was like a private school, and the tuition to the school was being provided to us by my dad's company, so it was like really nice. This is probably the nicest private school for high school and middle school in all of Sydney, Australia. And if you guys didn't know, most kids go to private schools in Australia. They do have public education, but I think I knew like one person that went to public school. Like the lion's share of kids went to private schools. And the only thing that was really remarkable about this school is they had the best co-curricular activities ever. And we went on these fucking ridiculous camping trips and skiing trips like all the time. It was an educational experience that I've never seen here in America. If I had to tell you like the main difference growing up between my time there and my time here is school is fucking awesome over there. Besides having to wear uniforms and all that shit, it was still fucking really cool. And today I'm going to tell you about like the coolest trip that we ever took, and it was this 4-day camping trip or hiking trip / canoeing trip where we had to bring everything that we were going to use over those 4 days and put it all into a bag and hike it all over the fucking Australian countryside or whatever. Now most people think Australia, they think desert, because most of Australia is this massive dead desert with this huge rock in the middle of it for no reason, but the entire coastline of Australia, like all the way around, is extremely lush, and they have some of the most amazing forests and one of the most complex ecosystems like ever to exist. And this was a pretty big trip. I remember them giving like a list of all the stuff we needed to bring, and we spent like the entire week going to all these different stores to get all the different shit, because we had to bring a tent. Of course we had to have a huge hiking bag, all of our clothes, all the survival stuff, and of course mom being mom, she made sure I had everything on that list. It wasn't like school supplies where you could skip the markers because you could just borrow those off of your friend. And the things on this list were like matches, and mama was taking care of baby cum duff, because if baby cum duff didn't have matches, well, he might get cold. So after a literal week of after school shopping, of getting all the stuff we had to get together for this, we finally get to the school and we load up into these massive buses. And I remember thinking how spooky it was being at the school so early, because we got there at like 5 a.m. The sun wasn't even up. It actually came up like as we were leaving. And there was the whole grade that was going on this trip, but eventually they put us into these like 10-person groups and assigned us 2 instructors. But we didn't meet them yet. So eventually after like a 3 or 4 hour drive, we ended up at this like riverside. And as soon as we got there, there were like these towers of stacked canoes, because this trip was a canoeing trip as well, and we were going to start off the trip like this. And I think majority of us had no fucking idea how to canoe, and that was the point kind of. We were there to learn how to canoe. But when you gotta learn how to canoe with you and your buddy and having everything that you need over the next 4 days in the fucking canoe with you, meaning if you spill over, you've got wet shit for the whole week, it can be kind of nerve-wracking. But we got there and we actually sectioned off into groups within our 10-person groups. It was like me and Wusong. If you remember Wusong, he was in my like Asian gang video. Way before all that happened, he was just a normal kid and we were just in school together, and he was my homie. And there was also 2 other dudes there, and we lucked out. We had 3 groups of 2 girls, and I almost remember all their names. I want to say Eve was there, Penny, Natalie, Camille, and I forget the rest. Maybe a Rachel was there. But as soon as we got this group, me and Wusong looked at each other like fucking sick. But you'll hear later on about how this wasn't as great as it was going to be. But then something happened I remember being pretty shocked about. Now, I am in like 8th grade right now, and I've said it before I went to Australia, I was kind of like this goody-goody two-shoes kid that all I did was play sports and do schoolwork. I had never drank or smoked or really done anything wrong besides like getting into some roughhousing trouble in school, because I told you, your boy liked to fight. So when we got there and we unloaded this bag that I had spent the better part of the last week packing, they searched our shit. They straight TSA'd us. They were looking through all your shit. They were opening soda to make sure you didn't spike it, because everyone brought a whole bunch of shit. Some kids brought like soda and things like that. We didn't actually have to carry that around. This 4-day trip was sectioned off into 4 campsites, and the people would leave like water and different supplies for us at every campsite, and you could have them leave your soda there as well, so you would have soda. But I remember being really shocked. I didn't know. He was sitting there smelling my soda for alcohol, and I'm looking around like, what? Did I not get the fucking memo? We were bringing alcohol on this trip? I didn't know it was a party. I thought we were gonna hike through the fucking woods and this thing was gonna suck. The only thing worse about hiking through the woods is hiking through the woods drunk or hungover. But yeah, they searched everyone's shit, and believe it or not, they didn't find anything, which I later found out was pretty funny, because everyone brought shit. I was like the only one that didn't think to bring shit. One kid even brought pot in his shoe, and I was thinking, wow, that's probably a good idea. They won't check there. But then I remembered we're on a fucking hiking trip. I don't know if you really want to smoke something that's been like soaking in your foot sweat this whole time. He ended up not being in our group, but I guarantee you he smoked that nasty shit eventually. But after our privacy was done being violated, we loaded into our canoes and started off into our trip. Now, I've never stepped foot in a canoe. I've never boated. I've never done any of that shit. I've never been surfing. And Wusong, well, he hadn't either. So when we got into this boat, it was shaky as fuck. And Wusong, well, he never got the hang of this whole canoeing concept. He never understood that if you paddled left, you were gonna go right and vice versa. And this fact plagued the next 3 hours of my life, because this dude was fucking clueless. Now, there were other groups that took a while to figure this out, but no, we were like in dead last. They allotted us like 6 hours to get from the drop-off point to the next campsite via canoe. Although that part of the trip was only supposed to take like an hour, it ended up taking like 3, and I spent the whole time like dodging branches at the riverbed because this dude could not steer for shit, and it wasn't like we could just pull over and switch spots because he was in the back, aka the person steering, and it was just an absolute clusterfuck. So everyone else ended up really far ahead of us and ended up getting there like a full 30 minutes before us, and that one poor instructor had to hang back and like deal with us being just livid. Like, we're really frustrated and pissed at this point. So trip didn't start out with a very positive note, but we eventually got there, and we all set up our tents and set up all our gear because we had sleeping bags and all this crap. And that's when they told us that each group was going to be responsible for cooking dinner on one of the nights for this 4-day camping trip. So of course everyone went for the hot dogs and the hamburger part, and nobody wanted to touch the Thai dinner, which was going to be this like chicken peanut saute or something like that with white rice. And whatever dinner you picked, you actually had to put all the stuff in your pack and carry it around this whole trip. And nobody wanted the Thai one because 1, it sounded like the most difficult, 2, you had to carry this giant walk around, and 3, you had to make rice. And white people, I know you don't know how to make rice like just boiling it, or most people don't, especially some dumbass kids, because that shit's not easy most of the time, especially over a freaking campfire. But this dinner was also on the very last night, so if you picked that one, you didn't have to cook for the first 3 days. So I looked over at Wusung, I was like, man, I think we got this. I'm half Chinese and you're full-blooded Korean. We got like a 75% chance of knocking that shit out of the park. And I remember them looking at us and being like, are you sure you want to take that? That's the hardest dinner. And they're looking over the girls that looked like they would jump on the grenade, but we're like, nah, we got this. I had never made rice before, but I was just damn sure that Wusung had. Now, I don't remember what the first night's dinner was, but after that was done being prepared, so began the game of instructor trying to catch dumbass campers trying to smoke cigarettes, which is a terrible idea around these nature people because they can smell smoke from like a million miles away. These dudes are straight up hippies. They only wear Columbia gear that's like rated to keep you hot or cold. I mean, these dudes were hardcore. They could tell you when a squirrel shit. And that's kind of what would happen because we had free reign to kind of just walk around and do whatever we want as long as we didn't go too far from the camp. But every now and then we'd be at the campfire and the like instructor would lift his nose up like a German shepherd and like and smell the air and then go running off into the woods trying to find smokers. And if these dumbasses actually managed to get back to the camp without getting caught, they would spray themselves with a whole bunch of cologne and deodorant and all this different stuff to cover the smell. So of course the instructor would come back and be like, I wonder who it is. The 8 people who smell like they've been in a canoe for the last couple hours, or the 2 kids who smell like they just got out of a French whorehouse. So they always got busted, but it's not like they could do much. It's like we're out in the middle of the woods, what the hell we were gonna do? I think all they ended up doing was making them carry extra shit. Another funny side note, right around 9 or 10 o'clock, people started to realize they had to take shits. And when the girls went to ask the camp instructors where the bathrooms were, well, they handed them a shovel. And I'm not being sexist by saying girls don't like shitting in holes, but I will say girls are really shitty at digging holes. They would almost always get one of us dumb guys to do it for them. And we did it because we were 14 years old, and they were fucking girls. And there was a lot of them. There was 6 of them in our group. Me and my dudes are like Joe Pesci from Casino, just digging holes out in the desert. But after all the shoveling, everyone just kind of went to sleep, and the camp instructors are right there, so they would tell everyone to shut the fuck up, so it's not like you could just stay up in your tent chilling the whole night. Because we had to get up at the crack of dawn and hike to the next camping site, and which is exactly what we did. The next day was actually pretty boring, I remember, because all we did was walk through the fucking woods, through all this like muddy track and stuff like that. I'm sure if I was older, I would have been looking around like, whoa, this is beautiful and stuff like that. But at this point, it was just a fucking hike through the woods. And all we really did during this entire like 4-hour walk was do those stupid word game riddles where you would say, oh, there's like 20 people dead in a cabin on the side of the mountain. What happened? Spoiler alert, it's an airplane cabin. But eventually we got to the next site, and it was this completely uncovered site. So the first site we stayed at was like this forest right along this riverbed, but the second one was this completely open area, which originally we thought was cool because we could see the moon, and the moon kind of lit up our camp so that we didn't really need a fire or a flashlight all the time. But it did make all the bats easy to see, and they would just fly around all our heads, so we spent most of the night just chilling in the tents. Which was cool with us because we had 6 girls in our group and we would pile into these 2-person tents. And I would like to say I was the Don and fucking slayed all of them, but nah, it didn't happen. I was 14 and awkward, and they were on a 4-day hiking trip and fucking smelled. Notice I didn't tell you we stopped at a shower or anything like that. No, this was a 4-day hiking trip. There was no showers, there were no bathrooms. The only thing you really had was the water they would leave at the campsite so you could like wash your face and brush your teeth and shit. So we ended up staying up all night just playing weird word games and things like that. We almost convinced them to play Spin the Bottle, but my boy Wusung wasn't exactly the prettiest dude, and the other 2 dudes were fucking losers. So it was just me and 6 chicks, which I was okay with, but I don't think they were digging it. But after we survived the bat night, we all packed up all our shit and ended up going to this 3rd site, which is really fucking cool. The 3rd site was fucking awesome. It was this really epic campsite that aligned right along a beach and had all these dunes of sand and things like that. and everyone kind of just hung out there all night. And if you haven't been to a beach at night, you really should go, because it's fucking epic. The sounds are really cool, everything kind of glimmers off the ocean, the moonlight usually illuminates the sand, so everything is glowing and shit. And I don't think I have to tell any of you guys, Australia is just a beautiful part of the world, and what they have to offer there for like fucking nature is just ridiculous. So we ended up chilling out there all night actually, because we had snuck out after the instructors went to sleep, and we had gotten pretty good at this because we had practiced doing it for 2 nights now. We ended up all falling asleep out there, which means we woke up with the worst like saltwater dry mouth ever. And we totally overslept because the camp instructors are the ones that came and woke you up every morning, and they were apparently flipped out because they couldn't find us, but eventually did. And by eventually did, I mean we heard them screaming from all the way back at the campsite, and eventually we were like, fuck, we gotta get back there. So we ended up getting scolded pretty hard for that, but eventually we just packed up all our shit and started to head to the next campsite, which I don't even remember a whole lot about, but it was Thai food night, so it was the night that me and Wusung were gonna cook dinner. And as predicted, we knocked that shit out of the park. My dude was like Iron Chef with the rice, made the best rice ever, and all I had to do was stir fry the chicken, which I already knew how to do because my mom taught me how to cook. And by the way, this was the best dinner, so we were like the heroes of the group. Everyone was in love with us. We were sitting around the campfire eating, like 10 people not saying a fucking thing. They were always looking over us, giving us approving nods like, hell yeah, motherfucker, this shit's good. Because we had spent 3 days eating trail mix and old hot dogs and all types of random shit. This dinner was a total treat, which earned us a lot of points with the camp instructors, because they didn't tell us, but they were kind of keeping like records of everything we were doing. They were evaluating us from like a sports point of view, so we ended up getting graded on this trip. So if you were like a total dickhead to the instructors and were a huge problem, you got like a really bad grade and you would get in all this trouble back at home. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not like we had a whole bunch of gold stars. We didn't behave very well on this trip, so us doing well at this dinner was major key. But again, we spent the whole night kind of talking to the girls, and I tried to hook up with this girl named Rachel. But again, we were all like really fucking gross and 14, so it was not like I was Rico Suave pulling fucking mad moves. Knowing me, I probably fucked up a whole bunch of times and tried to save it with some jokes, because that's all I got. The next day was actually really cool because we woke up the next morning, packed up all our shit, went on a short hike, and eventually ended up at this like compound of cabins where we met up with all the other groups from the grade. And we all split up into these like 4-person cabins and finally got to shower, and we got to eat at the cafeteria. And that night they had this like mini prom in their little auditorium, so we got to go there and like dance and socialize with everyone for the grade, and it was just a fucking epic party. And of course, this is when all the alcohol got drank, because a lot of these people's sodas ended up not being delivered, but eventually made it to us on the last day. So that was an absolute shit show of a night. But of course, after that night, all the buses were there the next morning. They came and picked us up and brought us back to the school. And everyone was telling all these stories about all the crazy shit that happened, because it was just like a really fucking cool trip. I've left a whole bunch of stuff out because I could talk about this trip for hours. But we did all types of stuff. We like made things, we like drew stuff. There was like an art part of the day at one point. We learned all this survival shit, and these like 2 wicked Australians, it was a guy and a girl, our instructors. They really did a great job just telling us about everything and really made us appreciate it, because at the end of the trip, we like sought after their respect, because they put up with all our shit in the beginning and eventually ended up being really cool people, because they were young homies. They couldn't have been older than like 25, 26, your typical camp instructor age or whatever. But yeah, that was a story of like the best trip I've ever been on, like as a field trip, so to speak. It's not the best trip I've been on, because I was really lucky growing up, and through my dad's work, we got to travel a whole lot and got to live obviously in Australia and do a whole bunch of stuff. And my dad made sure that we took advantage of this opportunity because he knew how rare it was. So we actually went on a whole bunch of trips and did a whole lot of stuff. I don't think I've ever mentioned that I did scuba diving. We scuba dived all the time. Pretty much my whole time in Australia, we spent like weekends and different random parts of the month going out to different dive sites and going diving. I think I've logged at least 70 dives. But I'll tell you about all that shit later. And of course, the other school trips that we went on these really cool winter camps, because you guys know in Australia, the June and July summer months are actually winter there. So instead of going to like beach summer vacations, we went to ski camps. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've got to go watch my team play in CWL and just hope they fucking qualify. Pray for TK. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.